Jujutsu and domain expansions. Jujutsu is the art of controlling cursed energy, the negative energy born from fear, hatred, and suffering. Sorcerers learn to shape this energy into weapons, barriers, and unique techniques to fight against curses, the monsters created from humanity's darkest emotions. Each sorcerer's innate ability is unique, influenced by their personality or bloodline, and mastering that ability defines their strength. At the peak of this art lies domain expansion. A domain expansion is the ultimate weapon of a sorcerer, a sealed space where their curse technique becomes absolute and every strike is guaranteed to hit. Few ever reach this level because shaping a barrier while pouring in enough energy to engrave a technique pushes even elite sorcerers to their limits. What makes each domain fascinating is that it doesn't just display power, it reveals personality, lineage, and the very mindset of its user. Some enforce rules like a courtroom, others unleash pure destruction, and a rare few break the boundaries of what a domain even is. Across history, only 14 sorcerers have revealed this ability, and each one shows us a completely different face of what it means to master cursed energy. Gojo Satoru, Unlimited Void. Gojo Satoru is a special grade sorcerer from the Gojo clan, famed as the strongest Jujutsu sorcerer of his era. He inherited the Limitless technique and the Six Eyes, a combination that gives him unrivaled control over cursed energy. Brilliant, confident, and often arrogant, Gojo carries himself with the assurance of someone who knows he stands above all others in power. His domain expansion, Unlimited Void, manifests as an infinite space where endless knowledge and stimuli flood directly into the target's mind. Victims remain conscious as their senses are overwhelmed, paralyzed by information they can never process. The domain reflects Gojo's mastery over space itself, expanding his limitless technique to an infinite scale. It also mirrors his personality, his belief in his own superiority, and his godlike presence among sorcerers. Gojo has even demonstrated the ability to activate his domain for less than a second, incapacitating enemies instantly without harming allies, a level of control no other sorcerer has shown. Sukuna, Malevolent Shrine. Ryomen Sukuna, known as the King of Curses, was originally a human sorcerer who lived over 1,000 years ago in the golden age of Jujutsu. His power was so immense and his cruelty so legendary that when he was finally defeated, his body resisted destruction. Instead, it was preserved in 20 indestructible fingers that carried fragments of his soul and cursed energy. These cursed objects allowed Sukuna to endure beyond death, transforming him into the most feared curse in history. His domain expansion, Malevolent Shrine, is unlike any other, because it does not use a sealed barrier. For most sorcerers, erecting a barrier is the only way to stabilize their technique inside a domain. Sukuna bypasses that rule entirely by making a binding vow with himself. He sacrifices the safety and forced pull of a barrier in exchange for projecting his slashing techniques directly onto the environment. Within a radius of nearly 200 meters, his dismantle and cleave attacks carve through everything in range with surgical precision. This trade-off should have made the domain unstable, but Sukuna's mastery of cursed energy turns it into his greatest weapon. Malevolent Shrine is larger than any other domain and cannot be broken from the outside. Its only weakness is Sukuna himself. Jogo, Coffin of the Iron Mountain. Jogo was a special grade curse born from humanity's fear of the earth and volcanic disasters. Arrogant and quick-tempered, he believed curses were the true evolution of humanity and often carried himself with pride far beyond his actual strength. Despite this, he remained one of the most dangerous disaster curses, feared for the sheer destructive force of his flames. Jogo's domain expansion, Coffin of the Iron Mountain, takes the form of a volcanic hellscape. Lava flows across the ground, flames erupt from every direction, and the air itself scorches anyone trapped inside. It feels less like a structured battlefield and more like being swallowed whole by a natural disaster. This environment reflects Jogo's personality, volatile, prideful, and prone to bursts of destructive rage. The domain doesn't show elegance or restraint. It overwhelms through sheer heat and chaos, mirroring his inability to control his temper. While devastating at close range, the lack of refined technique in its design left it vulnerable when compared to the domains of more disciplined sorcerers. Mahito, self-embodiment of perfection. Mahito was a special grade curse born from humanity's fear and hatred of one another. Unlike other disaster curses tied to natural phenomena, he embodied the malice people direct at fellow humans, making him uniquely sadistic and fascinated by the nature of souls. Manipulative and cruel, he treated people as experiments, constantly evolving as he learned through conflict. His domain expansion, self-embodiment of perfection, creates a space where his curse technique, idol transfiguration, touches everything inside. In this environment, Mahito doesn't need physical contact to reshape souls. Simply existing within the domain puts victims under his control. The design reflects both his twisted curiosity and his obsession with manipulating life itself, presenting a realm where he stands as the absolute master of every soul. Unlike other domains that overwhelm with force or destruction, his exerts dominance through inevitability, forcing opponents into direct confrontation with their own mortality. Megumi Fushiguro, Chimera Shadow Garden. Megumi Fushiguro is a student of Tokyo Jujutsu High and the heir to the Zenin clan's 10 Shadows technique, a hereditary ability that allows him to summon and command Shikigami born from his shadows. Calm, calculating, and often secretive, Megumi's potential has long been noted by powerful sorcerers, including Sukuna himself, who sees in him the capacity for extraordinary growth. His domain expansion, Chimera Shadow Garden, is an incomplete but evolving manifestation of his technique. Instead of a polished barrier, Megumi floods the area with a liquid-like shadow that spreads across the ground and walls, turning everything into his hunting ground. Within this environment, he can summon multiple Shikigami at once, manipulate them more freely, and even merge his body into the shadows to attack from unexpected angles. The domain reflects his adaptability and ingenuity, transforming what should be a weakness, its unfinished, unstable form, into a versatile advantage. Though not yet perfected, Chimera Shadow Garden showcases the unique potential of the 10 Shadows technique and hints at the overwhelming power Megumi may one day wield. Dagon, Horizon of the Captivating Skanda. Dagon was a special-grade curse born from humanity's fear of water-based natural disasters, particularly the ocean's destructive power. Initially appearing as a harmless-looking cursed womb, he later matured into a fully realized curse with immense strength. Though less arrogant than Jogo or Mahito, Dagon was driven by instinct and survival, making him no less dangerous when cornered. His domain expansion, Horizon of the Captivating Skanda, manifests as a vast tropical ocean, complete with shoreline and sky, creating the illusion of an endless seascape. Within this environment, Dagon can summon countless Shikigami in the form of fish-like monsters that relentlessly attack intruders. The domain mirrors his nature as a curse of the sea, vast, consuming, and teeming with predatory life. It is both beautiful and terrifying, a trap that drowns opponents beneath waves of summoned creatures. Horizon of the Captivating Skanda demonstrated the overwhelming scale of a curse's power when given full freedom to express its origin, though Dagon's inexperience in combat ultimately limited its effectiveness against seasoned sorcerers. Yuta Okkotsu, Authentic Mutual Love. Yuta Okkotsu is a special-grade sorcerer and one of the most promising students of Jujutsu High. A distant relative of Satoru Gojo, he first gained recognition as the host of Rika Orimoto, a childhood friend whose tragic death bound her to him as a cursed spirit. Known as the Queen of Curses, Rika provides Yuta with overwhelming reserves of cursed energy and allows him to sustain abilities no sorcerer should normally possess. His innate curse technique grants him the power to copy the techniques of others, and with Rika's support, he can store, maintain, and call upon them in battle. In rare cases, when Rika consumes part of an opponent, Yuta has even been able to seize their ability directly. His domain expansion, Authentic Mutual Love, creates a battlefield filled with towering crosses, ropes knotted together in patterns of connection, and countless katanas embedded in the ground. Each blade becomes a vessel for the techniques Yuta has copied, ready to be drawn at will. Inside the domain, he is not restricted to one innate ability. Every technique he has acquired can be unleashed freely. What defines Authentic Mutual Love is that the copied technique itself forms the unavoidable strike of the domain, forcing his opponents into a fight against abilities they cannot escape. This space is the perfect reflection of Yuta's strength, a union of his own talent, his bond with Rika, and the limitless adaptability that makes him one of the most dangerous sorcerers alive. Smallpox Deity, Graveyard Domain. The Smallpox Deity was a special-grade curse summoned by Kenjaku through his cursed spirit manipulation during the Shibuya incident. Despite its grand title, it was recognized by Meimei as nothing more than a disease curse rather than a true deity. Its form embodied the terror of plague, a levitating figure with hair covering much of its face, tusks protruding from its jaw, and skin marked with pox-like growths. Created to weaponize the dread of epidemic death, the curse's nature was straightforward but deadly. Capture, infect, and kill. Its domain expansion, Graveyard Domain, instantly entombed its victim inside a coffin-like chamber. A massive gravestone would then drop onto the coffin, sealing the target underground as a countdown began. If the victim failed to escape before the time expired, they were struck with smallpox and condemned to death. This domain reflected the merciless nature of disease itself, inescapable once contracted and lethal if not overcome in time. While lacking the sophistication of a sorcerer's crafted expansion, Graveyard Domain demonstrated how even a straightforward curse, when amplified, could create a space of inevitable death. Hiromi Higuruma, Deadly Sentencing. Hiromi Higuruma was a public defense attorney before awakening as a Jujutsu sorcerer during the Culling Game. With a strong sense of justice and disillusionment toward the flaws of Japan's legal system, he carried that mindset into his curse technique. Calm, rational, but uncompromising, Higuruma is both a sharp thinker and a dangerous fighter whose ability to interpret rules gives him a unique edge. His domain expansion, Deadly Sentencing, manifests as a courtroom complete with judge, jury, and executioner. Inside this space, combat ceases, and the domain enforces a trial where the summoned judgment evaluates the accused. Evidence is presented, a verdict is rendered, and a punishment is enforced without appeal. Depending on the judgment, consequences can range from stripping curse techniques to enforcing a death sentence with an executioner's sword. The domain embodies Higuruma's core belief that justice must be applied absolutely and transforms the battlefield into a trial where guilt or innocence decides the outcome. Kinji Hakari, Idle Death Gamble. Kinji Hakari is a suspended third year at Tokyo Jujutsu High, infamous for his rebellious streak and gambling-like approach to life. Despite his delinquent reputation, he is a genius-level fighter whose charisma and instinctual grasp of cursed energy make him one of the most formidable young sorcerers of his generation. His innate technique revolves around pachinko mechanics, tying his power to probability and luck in a way only he could master. His domain expansion, Idle Death Gamble, manifests as a pachinko machine that spins upon activation. When the reels land on a jackpot, Hakari gains an automatic 4-minute interval of reverse curse technique that heals even fatal injuries. At the same time, he receives a surge of effectively unlimited cursed energy, fueling non-stop regeneration and giving him an edge in extended combat. As long as the jackpots continue, Hakari can chain these intervals together, making him nearly impossible to kill. The domain mirrors his personality, reckless, daring, and willing to push his luck, yet it is anchored by his precise control of cursed energy. Idle Death Gamble transforms every battle into a game of survival where, for Hakari, the odds are always stacked in his favor. Naoya Zenin, Time Cell Moon Palace. Naoya Zenin was a member of the Zenin clan who believed himself to be the rightful heir to the family's legacy. Arrogant and elitist, he looked down on others with cruelty, convinced that his bloodline and technique made him superior. His inherited ability, projection sorcery, divides 1 second into 24 frames, forcing motion to follow that artificial timing. Anyone who fails to keep up is frozen for a full second, left exposed to Naoya's attacks. To him, this technique was more than a weapon. It was proof of his claim to carry the Zenin name as its true successor. After his death, Naoya returned as a curse, evolving his abilities even further. His domain expansion, Time Cell Moon Palace, creates an environment entirely bound by projection sorcery. Every movement inside is locked into the 24-frame rhythm, and anyone unable to maintain that tempo is immobilized and cut down. The domain reflects both the precision of his technique and the ruthless superiority he believed in, turning the natural flow of time into an arena where only he holds control. Kenjaku, Womb Profusion. Kenjaku is an ancient sorcerer infamous for his ability to transplant his brain into new bodies, stealing their techniques and extending his life across centuries. One of his most notorious hosts was a member of the Kamo clan, one of the 3 great Jujutsu families. While wearing this body, Kenjaku conducted horrific experiments by implanting cursed objects into women, creating the death paintings, half-human, half-cursed beings like Choso. These atrocities forever stained the Kamo name, remembered as the work of the evilest sorcerer in history. His domain expansion, Womb Profusion, reflects this twisted philosophy. The domain manifests as a grotesque space filled with writhing human forms and cursed wombs, symbolizing his centuries of manipulation and experimentation. Inside, Kenjaku can summon hordes of curses born from his creations, overwhelming enemies through sheer numbers rather than a single strike. Womb Profusion is less about direct combat and more about control, turning victims and experiments into extensions of his will. It embodies Kenjaku's true identity. Not a warrior, but a manipulator who sees humanity itself as raw material. Yorozu, Threefold Affliction. Yorozu was a Heian-era sorcerer revived during the Culling Game, remembered as both eccentric and dangerously unstable. What defined her most, however, was her obsessive love for Sukuna. She believed that only she could understand him, and her battles often became twisted displays of devotion, framed as proof that her love could reach the King of Curses. Her innate technique was construction, the ability to create matter out of cursed energy, a rare ability that consumes immense energy with every use. Despite this limitation, Yorozu was remarkably creative, crafting insect-like armor, weapons, and even manipulating liquid metal to fight with versatility. Unlike most construction users, she had the instinct to push the technique beyond simple objects, turning it into a weaponized extension of her eccentric imagination. Her domain expansion, Threefold Affliction, gave her creations both stability and inevitability. Inside the domain, the flaws and inefficiencies of construction vanished, allowing her to forge weapons and armor at full potential without wasted energy. Its sure hit effect ensured that whatever she created would function exactly as intended, overwhelming her opponent with relentless constructs. The domain was less about brute force and more about embodying Yorozu's unstable devotion, her conviction that her love for Sukuna could manifest as the ultimate weapon. Yuji Itadori, Hometown Domain. Yuji Itadori is the protagonist of Jujutsu Kaisen, a sorcerer who began with no innate curse technique, relying only on raw physical ability and an iron will to fight curses. After becoming the vessel for Sukuna, Yuji endured countless battles that forced him to adapt, honing his body and cursed energy through sheer determination. His strength lies not in inherited lineage or overwhelming technique, but in his perseverance, his ability to learn through combat, and his unshakable resolve to protect others. He eventually learned the fundamentals of barrier techniques, giving him the ability to cast a domain expansion. Unlike most domains that reflect cruelty, obsession, or dominance, Yuji's manifests as something deeply personal. His domain expansion, often called Hometown Domain, recreates his childhood environment in vivid detail. Landmarks like local statues, the park he once played in, department stores, farmland, and even animals such as crayfish, horses, and geese appear inside the barrier. This space reflects Yuji's core identity, grounded, human, and tied to the memories of a life he continues to fight for. The sure hit effect manifests as his soul-rending technique, Dismantle, which strikes opponents directly without physical contact. In contrast to Sukuna's destructive Malevolent Shrine, Yuji's Hometown Domain symbolizes compassion, memory, and belonging, a place where his humanity itself becomes the foundation of his strength. Comment below what your domain expansion would be. Like and subscribe for more content like this.